আমরা অলরেডি এমিলি ডিকিনসনের দুখানা কবিতা কমপ্লিট করেছি। একটি হলো আই ক্যানট লিভ উইথ ইউ, আর একটি হলো আই অ্যাম ওয়াইফ, আই হ্যাভ ফিনিশড দ্যাট। টুডে উই আর গোয়িং টু রিড another feminist poem by another feminist poet, Sylvia Plath. Sylvia Plath is an important and prominent feminist American poet and novelist. She was born in 1932 in Boston. She led a life of depression and frustration. And out of depression, in the early phase of her life, she tried to kill herself by taking sleeping pills. But eventually, she got recovered by taking mental health treatment. She was interested in writing poems from the very beginning of her life. She came in contact with a British poet, Ted Hughes, during her university education at Cambridge. She married him and gave birth to 2 children by him. But they had a very stormy relationship. They couldn't continue their relation for long. Emily Dickinson, through her poem, expressed her hatred, her dislike, her protest against the male-dominated society. The first collection of poems she published in 1960. The name of the collection is The Colossus. In the same year, she gave birth to her first child, a daughter. So this year is very important in her life because in this year, in 1960, she gave birth to a biological child and a literary child, The Colossus. In 1956, she married Ted Hughes, gave birth to 2 children, but the relation collapsed very soon. She got subjected to nervous breakdown when she came to know that her husband Ted Hughes left her for another woman. This was a great shock to her. She could hardly overcome this. And struggling with her mental illness, she wrote Bell Jar, her only novel, in 1963. Through this novel, she presented her life. This novel speaks of the agony of a young woman's mental breakdown. Some other poems she wrote, but those poems were not published during her life, before her death. Those were published posthumously in 1965 in the volume called The Ariel. Her name, fame, reputation and recognition came after her death. She was given the Pulitzer Prize in the year 1965, 2 years after her death. Now, like Emily Dickinson, Sylvia Plath also expressed her outrage, her anger, her protest against the gender structure of the society, gender discrimination in the society, marginalization of women by the men, special privilege enjoyed by men. In every nook and corner of society, in every step of life, a woman is compelled to lead the secondary type of life. Everywhere she is given the second hand position. This cannot go on. It must be protested against. And that is why Sylvia Plath took her pen and started writing poem. Today we are going to read a poem, Daddy. This poem is taken from the collection of poems called The Ariel. And this poem she wrote immediately after her husband Ted Hughes left her and developed love relation with other women. The poem Daddy is a 17 5-line stanzas, a poem of 17 5-line stanzas. A venomous poem, a brutal poem, generally understood to be about her deceased father, Otto Plath. This poem can be viewed as a poem about an individual, a woman trapped between herself and society. Society has stifled her, has confined her, has suffocated her, and she is suffering from claustrophobic feeling. She is suffering from inferiority complex, suffering from persecution complex. She can hardly come out of this miserable situation. And through the poem Daddy, the poet Sylvia Plath has well picturized the miserable life led by a woman. And she has prescribed how to come out from this situation. Her prescription is to destroy, is to annihilate the total shut up of present society and to give a restructure, to give a renovation, to give a renewal to the society, where men and women will be equally treated. No biasness will be there, no prejudice will be there, no partiality will be there. All will enjoy equal facilities. All will enjoy freedom of choice, freedom of speech, and freedom of breathing. And this is why in this poem she has tried to draw the attention of the intellectuals to think of this, to think about the gender structure of society, and then to feel the necessity to reconstruct it, to renovate it, to renew it, so that any individual who is marginalized, may be a woman or any other individual, any other person leading a marginalized life, can come out from this misery, from this sorrow and suffering. And to do so, to bring the cruelty and atrocity of man to the surface, she has brought together all the patriarchal figures like father, vampire, Nazis, husband. This patriarchal figure have long been tormenting, have long been torturing the women folk. And the women have to stand up against this torture, against this cruelty. And what should they do? They must destroy, annihilate the male domination from the society. And then and only then they can get the freedom from the clutch of the man. This poem, you should keep in mind, is full of the contradiction of meaning. Multiple interpretation can be imposed on the poem. So a single interpretation cannot be considered to be final. So many interpretations are there. And another thing you should bear in mind, that through this poem, Sylvia Plath has protested against the creative limitation put against the women. She has tried here to protest against the male muse, the special facilities and privilege enjoyed by the male poets, male writers. All the fame, name, reputation, recognition, facilities and privilege are enjoyed by the male poets, male writers, and the women are not given their due rights, the due honor and respect, the due reputation and recognition. So this poem, Daddy, is written from feminist perspective to champion the feminist rights, female rights, to talk on behalf of marginalized women, to say against the torture of the men on women. Now we may start reading the text. You should keep in mind that this poem is put on the lips of a daughter, of a wife, that is, of a woman. And she is speaking against her father as a daughter, against her husband as a wife, and against the men as a woman. That is, a tortured, tormented, marginalized, suffocated woman is speaking against the tormentor, oppressor, torturer, against the man, against the male, against the patriarchy. So, in the very word daddy, in this poem, she has put the idea of a tormentor, of a dominator. So, here daddy is the dominator, daddy is the tormentor, daddy is the male dominated society, daddy is a cruel man. So start reading. You do not do, you do not do. Who is you here? এই লাইনটা তুলে তোমাকে প্রশ্ন করা হতে পারে, হু ইজ ইউ হিয়ার? তখন তোমাকে শুধু ইউ সেকেন্ড পারসন সিঙ্গুলার বা প্লুরাল বলে দিলেই হবে না। ইউ ইজ a pronoun, second person singular or plural. That is not enough as an answer. You have to understand the perspective from which this you has been used. Who this you immediately refers and who this you remotely refers. You must understand fully in its all aspects. So here you is immediately referring to the father of Sylvia Plath, that is Otto Plath. As the speaker is Sylvia Plath, so here EU, that is daddy, is the father of Sylvia Plath. But this EU is interpreted broadly in the light of the later information of the poem. This EU is also the husband, because the tormentor father died and he is replaced by another man, that is husband. So this EU is the father, this EU is the husband, this EU is any woman, any man, this EU is the society. Broadly. So you do not do anymore. A daughter is speaking about her father. So you do not do, that is you do not torture, you do not punish me. No longer you can show your cruelty and mercilessness upon me, because you are already dead. You are dead. Therefore, you no longer do. You no longer can torture me. You cannot. But your next generation continue to torture me. The father comes to her life in the form of husband. That is, a man comes to her life in the form of husband. First, he was tortured by a man who was her father. Next, she was tortured by a man who was her husband. So the father is replaced by the husband. But you do not do, oh father, oh daddy, you no longer torture me, torment me, because you have already died. You are no longer in this world. any more. Much I have suffered in your hand. Much I have tolerated. And much you tormented me. You tortured me. As you have breathed your lust, you no longer does have the ability to continue that torture. Black shoe you are. Father, you are the black shoe, in which I have lived like a fool. Father, I am a fool, and you are a shoe. Here, father-daughter relationship is described as shoe and foot relationship. Father is the shoe, daughter is the foot. What does the shoe do upon the foot? The shoe covers the foot. The shoe controls the foot. The shoe suffocates, confines, stifles, narrow the space of the foot. The shoe hides, the shoe covers all kinds of outlet through which the foot can come out. No way to come out for the foot. The shoe does have a confining effect, a claustrophobic effect, a suffocating effect upon the foot. The foot is frustrated, the foot loses its greenness, and the foot loses its buoyancy. The daughter, under the reign, under the ruling of her father, led a very frustrated life, very depressed life, very controlled, stifled, confined, pent-up life. No freedom she enjoyed, no liberty she enjoyed. She was continually under torture, under pressure, under suffocation, under narrowing effect. Every day, every moment, her space was getting shrunk into zero. Her life zone was gradually getting narrowed, increasingly getting narrowed because of the pressure, control of the father. Now think of the adjective black before the shoe. Black means evilish, evilous. Black means devilish. Black means satanic. Black means impure, unjust. And the shoe unjustly torturing the foot. The shoe wrongly controlling the foot, forcibly controlling the foot. And the foot is losing buoyancy, is losing greenness, is losing happiness, is losing its color, and developing whiteness. White foot means innocent foot. White foot means pure foot. White foot means sinless foot. The shoe is sinful, black, but the foot is sinless. A black, sinful shoe is torturing a white, sinless foot. A black, sinful, satanic father is torturing a sinless, innocent daughter. A black, evilous, murderous, treacherous man is torturing a pure, a divine, an innocent, a lovable woman. Clear? So the shoe and foot relation is to be understood, and then you will be able to understand the relation of Sylvia Plath and her father Otto Plath. Don't think that this poem is only about the relation between Sylvia Plath and Otto Plath. Actually, this poem is about any father and daughter relation, in which I have lived like a fool, which I hear Sylvia Plath the poet immediately, but remotely this I is any woman of American society, any woman of the world, and this you is any father, is any man of the world. For 30 years, do remember that her father died when she was 8 or 10. But why she is speaking of 30 years? For long 30 years, poor and white, barely daring to breathe or achew. 30 years. This is the lifespan of Sylvia Plath. 20 years, she led her life without the domination of her father. She was under the domination of her father for first 8 or 10 years. But why she is speaking of 30 years? Actually, her husband is the continued form of her father. Her husband is a man, her father was also a man. Her father was also a man. So a man died, but another man came to her life and continued the male torture upon her. So she says that she spent 30 years under the pressure and torture of her father, because husband is also a fatherly figure, a man figure. For 30 years, poor and white. Poor means neglected, leading a very miserable life, losing all blitheness, all cheerfulness, all happiness, all buoyancy of life, all pleasure of life. So poor and white, so suffocated that it has developed a white color. So poor and white refers to the misery of life of a daughter under the pressure of her father. So this who is the father and this food is the daughter. This shoe is prepared by the company called society. Society has created these machines, this torturing instrument, the fathers, the husbands, to control and persecute the women folk of the society. Now, for 30 years, Father, I led a miserable life under your ruling, and barely means hardly I dared to breathe. I did not have the liberty even to breathe. even to breathe. Even breathing was not allowed for me. So narrowed and controlled life I used to lead under your pressure, under your ruling. I was so afraid of you, and so intense was my fear that I could hardly breathe in your presence. Such a huge figure you did have, such an important position, such a fearful and awesome figure you had been, that I could hardly breathe, I could hardly took breath openly and freely. Achu is German word which means to breathe. I could not sneeze before you. I could not yawn before you. I could not open my mouth before you. I could not boldly face you. Look at you with boldness, with courage. Courage I had not. Strength I had not to face you, to talk to you, to breathe before you. That is to lead a normal life, happy life, free life, life full of freedom and liberty. I could not enjoy in your presence. Daddy, I have had to kill you to get free from you. I felt the necessity to kill you. To kill you, that is to kill the fatherly system of society. To kill the patriarchal structure of the society, the gender structure of the society. To get away from the trap of society. To get away from the torture and trap of the father. Father is to be killed by the daughter. That is, the father should protest and even to kill, to annihilate, to murder the father just to get free from him. No alternative was there to get back the freedom, which is her inborn right. Breathing is an inborn right. Even this birthright is taken away by the man. So this man is to be killed. This man is to be totally disregarded. Is to be totally done away with. Totally discarded. Totally neglected. The world of the father is to be neglected, and the world of the mother is to be accepted, is to be invited, is to be welcomed. So her desire, her intention is to come back to the motherliness from the fatherliness. So Daddy, so torture you have done upon me. So depressed you have made me. So frustrated I became because of you. I felt the need to kill you. I should have killed you, but you died before I had time. You died before I had time, but I did not have enough time in my hand to kill you. Before I planned, you died. Before I planned your murder, you died. So I couldn't take revenge against you. I became so revengeful that I wanted to kill you. You died before I had done. Marvel heavy, you had been a pitiless person, as pitiless as the hard stone. You were very hard-hearted. No love was there within you. No mercy, no pity, no sympathy was there in you. The only word in your personal vocabulary to be found were mercilessness, pitilessness, cruelty, bloodthirstiness, murderousness, and atrocity. These are the words available in your practice, in your lifestyle, in your dictionary, in your thinking, in your stream of consciousness. No entry for love, sympathy, and mercy. You are a very hard-hearted person like a marble, a bag full of gold. I thought you to be a person full of godly power. You were the all-powerful person. You were the omnipresent. You were the strong, fearful person to me. As if you did have as much power as God. You were a godly figure. But later on, I came to understand that you were a dogly figure before me. You were not a god, you were a dog to me. Ghastly statue, an obnoxious, hateful statue you had been. As a father has died, he is nothing but a statue in one sense. And as his father was pitiless, as his father did not have the capacity of any feeling, any emotion, love and pity, so he is to be considered a statue. With one great toe, big as a Frisco seal. Frisco seal is a sea lion that can be seen in San Francisco. And his father is compared with a Frisco seal, with a lion, sea lion. With one great toe, big as a Frisco seal, and a head in the freakish Atlantic, in the Atlantic Ocean, where it pours bean green over blue, bean green over blue, in the waters of beautiful Nauset. Nauset is a beautiful zone on the coast of Atlantic Ocean. So this Nauset is a beautiful place, but this beauty is juxtaposed, is put side by side with a fearful picture, fearful scene of the sea. Sea and beauty of Nauset is placed together. Though the sea is fearful, yet it does have some beauty. Though the sea does have some beauty, it does have some cruelty. The reference is to the cruelty of her father. Though her father does have the beauty as a human being, she does have the cruelty. So there is cruelty under the packet of beauty. Outside beauty, inside cruelty. So his father is like a sea which shows greenness, which shows beauty, but which also does have the cruelty inside. So her father, though shows some human beauty, he does have some cruelty within himself. I used to pray to recover Eve. Father, you died. I again and again prayed to God to give you back to me. I wanted to bring you back to my life. It does have two meanings. She wanted to kill him. Again he says that I wanted to recover him. She wanted to recover him. She wanted to recover him. Why? One meaning is that she wanted to recover him just to get the chance to take revenge, just to kill him in her own hand. The another meaning is she was so saturated with him, by him, so independent, so dependent she had been upon him, so adjusted and accustomed she had been with his torture, with her torment, with his torment, and with his way of life, that she felt alone after his death. She felt like a fish out of water when her father died, because she lost all idea of personal freedom. So now her father died, and even she herself wanted to kill him. Now she is free then from the hand of her father, but still she wanted to go back to him, or she wanted him to come back to her. Why? This is because she misses the torture. She misses the torture. She misses her father's cruelty, because she had long been adjusted with him. Now she looks for the lost belt of bondage, symbol of bondage. And this belt was an inseparable part of her life. This cruelty and atrocity of her father was the part and parcel of her life. Now her father is lost. It seems that some important aspect of her life is lost. She now looks back to the past. She now retrospects and finds something missing. That is the cruelty. So there is a picture here about the misery of life. When does a man or a woman can longs for torture, hankers after cruelty, when she has long been adjusted with it? A severe, miserable picture the poet has picturized here, has drawn here. When a bird is encaged, initially it tries again and again to break the cage and to go out, but it cannot. Gradually she forgets and get adjusted, and she no longer tries to go out of the cage. And after long time, even if it is let free, even the cage is opened, it does not fly, it does not go away, because she has forgotten what freedom is. So the daughter cannot live alone. Because she does not know how to live alone. She is not independent. She has always been depending on someone, on the father. So she cannot enjoy. She fears. She is afraid of independence. She is afraid of freedom. She has never been tested what freedom is. She is afraid of testing the pleasure of freedom. I used to pray to recover you. Achu, achu, do. Oh, you, my father. This is German utterance. Ach, do means oh, you, oh, father. And long I again and again prayed to God so that He gives you back to me. This is also called the Electra complex. What is an Electra complex? Electra complex means the love of the daughter for the father. What is Oedipus complex? Oedipus complex is love of the son for the mother. In the German tongue, in the Polish tongue, scraped flat by the roller of words. But the name of the town is common. My Polak friend says there are a dozen or two, so I never could tell where you put your foot, your root. I never could talk to you. The tongue stuck in my jaw. Now, read the line. So I never could tell where you put your foot, your root. I never could ask my father as to his origins, where he was born, where he came from. I couldn't ask him about his parentage because I couldn't talk to him. I did not have the questioning power. I did not have the power to make an interrogation. So I never asked him as to his origins, as to his parentage. But he spoke German language. And from my Polak friend, Polak is the adjective of Poland. Polak friend, one of my Polak friends told me about the birthplace of my father. And he says that it cannot be pinpointed where actually his father was born in Poland. Because in Poland, all the towns are equal in character, are uniform in character, in traits, in qualities. They are the same. So every Poland town is of uniform design, is of uniform structure, social structure. So where her father came from is not to be clear, is not clear to Sylvia Plath. She tried to know from one of her police friends, but her friend failed to give her the exact origin of her father. So every town, any town of Poland is the every town. Any town is the every town, because every town is equal in structure, in design, in sentiment, in philosophy, in form, in administration. But the name of the town is common. Common means equal. Common in character and traits, features. My Polak friend says there are a dozen or two. That is many, numerous. Put your foot, your root, where you were rooted, where you first was born. She does not know. I never could talk to you regarding your parentage and your origin. I did not have the power to ask you the question. The tongue stuck in my jaw. I tried. I intended. I wanted. But I could not utter my question, utter my inquiry. So every town, any town was every town. And any man was every man. In the then police towns, in the then Poland, any town was every town, any man was every man. No difference between any two towns, no difference between any two men. They were equal in features. It is stuck. It means my tongue. In a barbed wire snare, barbed pointed rod দিয়ে তৈরি করা খাঁচাকে barbed wire snare বলা হয়। Each. I was as if in a cage made by the pointed rods. I couldn't come out. I couldn't utter my feelings, my desire, my inquiry. I couldn't utter before my father. Each. This is German utterance, which means I. Just to say again and again, I. It means that I wants to say something. The speaker wants to say something, but cannot. Because of the lack of language, or because of the lack of facility, because of the lack of the freedom of speech. She did not have any power to talk. She did not have the freedom to talk. I could hardly speak. Just I said, Father, I want to say, but I cannot. So I could hardly speak before my father. I thought every German was you. This is the idea. Every German was you. Every you is a German. Every German is you. Any man is every man. Any place is every place. Anywhere is everywhere. That is everywhere. Everywhere a woman is tortured. By every man, by every father, a woman, a daughter is tortured. no difference of the towns, among the towns, no difference among the men in terms of treating, in case of treating the women. All men are the same in torturing, in marginalizing, tormenting the women of the society. I thought every German was you and the language obscene, and your language is obscene. Your language is full of obscene words, unwanted words, full of abuses, full of black words. Use the language in such a way as if to do unjust upon the women. So the language which utters injustice and wrongdoing is the obscene language. The language which is spoken by the unjust man, spoken by torturing man, is obscene language, is unwanted language. So man's language is to be hated. Man's language is to be thrown away. And the woman's language is to be developed. The language, even the language the people use are the father's language. So the mother's language is to be used, is to be developed. So up to here, we have understood that Sylvia Plath is again and again uttering the inner agony, inner sorrows, suffering, depression, annoyance, frustration of a woman under the pressure of the ruling father, ruling man. How painful it is to not have the power to express the sorrows by some words, by some sentences. Even they are not allowed to speak their own language. Another thing you should keep in mind, that this poem is also a protest against the man domination in the field of literature. They marginalize the women writers. The women writers are not given much scope to express their own thinking, own thought. And the men do not allow them, with the fear that they will blast an atom bomb. That is, they will throw linguistic missile of language against them. If they are allowed, they will use their nail and tooth of language. With this fear and with pride, main writer always tries to suppress them, to narrow them, to keep them confined and stagnated. This stagnation, this confinement, Sylvia Plath is speaking against in this poem. So that's all. Thank you.